Today I'm going to be sharing with you my top 21 tips to my 21-year-old self. I've been a part of the real estate industry for nearly a decade. I've been a part of almost $500 million worth of real estate transactions, and I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching, conferences, and mentorship. Starting with number one, environment is everything. Have you ever heard of the statement that the 5 people you spend the most time with is who you become? Early on in my career, I made a couple choices that didn't end up putting me in the right environment. I needed to be around people who are super positive, super fun, excited, and ready to go to work each and every single day. And my first team that I ended up joining was where I got put into a position where I was basically an administrative assistant. It wasn't lead generation based, it wasn't goal oriented, it was just basically me, writing up documents, doing BPOs, broker price opinions, basically evaluating properties, and evicting people from their homes. So as someone who came from the world of watching $1 Million Listing and getting so jacked up about getting into the real estate industry, because I'm watching these people make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then getting into an environment where I was basically evicting people from their homes because I started out in the foreclosure world. This was back in 2012, 13, 14, 15. If you want to succeed, you want to thrive, you need to be paying attention to the environment that you're in. If you're in a powerful environment, you're going to see unbelievable, successful results. Number 2, your business will only grow to the extent that you grow. This has to do with your mindset. In the real estate business, it's not just about making sales calls and doing follow-up and presenting offers and going on presentations. It's about growing the mindset. Because if you want to make more money in any fashion of business, it starts with the extent that you work on yourself. Because we all have a financial thermostat. And when I first got into the real estate industry, I was coming from the corporate world. So I was running a couple franchises and I was earning somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 a year. So no wonder that even after 2 years in the real estate business, I never could make more than $40,000 a year because that was my financial thermostat. It wasn't until I realized that I need to invest in me so that I could raise that financial thermostat. This is where the coaching, the conferences, the mentorship, you name it, I invested in Henry, I invested in me, and my financial thermostat started to grow. Once I started doing that, all of a sudden, within a 12-month period of time, I made my first 100,000. Within my first 30 months, I made my first $1 million. If you want to grow, it has to start with you. Invest in you and your business will pay it forward. Tip number 3, pay yourself first. I've made millions of dollars in the real estate industry and I can't even explain to you how grateful I am to be in the position I am today. My biggest mistake was that I never paid myself first. I earned money, I spent money. I earned money, I spent money. And by the way, growing up, I always saved. I saved a ton of money. However, when I got into the industry of entrepreneurship, I got so used to basically spending every dollar that I had investing in my business. It did not come clear to me saying, oh, wait a second. In order to actually be financially well off, I needed to focus more on saving money as much as I was focused on growing my business. Instead of just spending all the money that I was earning on growing the business. Because when you can pay yourself first, it gives you the stickability. Because just to give you an idea, during COVID, I was running $1 million plus top line revenue company. And at that time, I wasn't saving that much money. But when COVID hit and all of a sudden my income went to zero, I had to lay off my staff. I didn't have much more than like 3 months worth of, all my expenses saved up. And that went so quickly. The best piece of advice financially that I could give myself was pay yourself first. This way, because if I would have just saved 10% off of every check you ever received, and as you start to grow, you could start taking then 20%, then 30% or more off of every commission check and just put it into an account that you can never touch. This will allow you to have this stickability during down times. Because as the market started to shift and I had a lot of money saved, I really didn't care because I had the stickability factor of getting through some down months, knowing that it would even out as I continued to focus on my production and the activities would follow. I promise you, over the next few years, you're gonna be glad you did. Tip number 4, cash is king. Continue off of the statement just previously in regards to saving money. It's not just to save, by the way. It's to be in a position of power. And let me explain to you what I mean. This does not mean like ruling over anything or being like you're super egotistical. I'm saying it's power in regards to you have now the opportunity to create wealth. Like I mentioned to you about my story during COVID where I was not in a major cash position. What happened was there were opportunities, there was deals that came across my desk that I could not take advantage of. I had to focus on me. Have you ever been there? Yeah, it sucks. It's not a fun place to be. So when I started focusing on saving money and putting myself myself into a very large cash position if the right deal comes along. I not only have the cash position, but I also have the connections where no matter what opportunity comes across my desk, if I think it's lucrative and it meets our buy box criteria, we can take full advantage and buy that property. Tip number 5, it's about how you spend every dollar versus how you save every dollar. There are people who make $40,000 or $50,000 a year and are very frugal, and they don't spend money on silly things, and they can save 10, 20, or 30% of their income. They're very diligent about saving as much money as possible every year, and then that money can compound because they put it into these opportunity vehicles. So it's not just about how much money you earn, it's about how you spend the money that you make. I was one of those individuals who went from making $40,000 a year to over $1 million a year within just a few short years, and I was not financially prepared or mentally prepared to do so. So I was spending money left and right unnecessarily and on so many things that just absolutely were not helping me grow. They were keeping me poor. So spending money on really fancy clothes, fancy watches, and even spending too much money on staff, on software, and on rent is just silly things that absolutely do not map to achieving wealth. So when you're earning money and you're starting to save money, you need to be paying attention to every dollar that you spend. Is it getting me one step closer to my financial goals or one step farther from them? Tip number 6, do not recruit and bring on board every single person who reaches out to you and asks for mentorship. There were so many people, and even to this day, there's a lot of people who are reaching out to us in regards to wanting to join my team. And throughout my years in the business, I've had plenty of people do the same. And what happened was, for a long period of time, I'm talking for a couple of years straight, if someone came to me and said, hey, I want to work for you, I would hire every single person. This led me to having an overinflated team of people who are not actually qualified to be in the positions in which they are. And even as salespeople, and these are people who came to me and said, like, listen, I'm willing to make as many calls as possible, where I then took the time out of my day as I was the main producer, earning 80 to 90% of the team's income, and then spending so much time, a ton of time, unnecessary time, trying to invest in these individuals who are just really not a good fit in the first place. I should only be looking for the best talent possible, and that's what we look for today. Point number 7, the game of business is to stay in business. It's a very long game, and by thinking short term, typically you make mistakes. So I was a huge proponent of I needed to be rich now. I was tired of being poor and not being able to afford the lifestyle that I wanted. And I was willing to work 100 hours a week, every single week, for as long as it took in order for me to achieve the result. That work ethic is great. However, the mindset behind it was the problem. Having the mindset of I need to be rich today, or the get rich quick side of things, that type of mentality leads to major mistakes, such as overhiring, overspending, being too focused on growth instead of being focused on profit. It's the get rich for sure versus the get rich quick. Tip number 8, closings make you rich, but equity makes you wealthy. I was not aware about how important equity was at the very beginning of my career. And what would happen was that I would be selling so many of these investment deals to my investors, and they went on to make millions and millions of dollars. And yes, over time, I started to learn from those mistakes, but I'm here to share with you the one thing that would have changed my career forever. If I could have had a larger percentage ownership in all of the deals that I was selling instead of taking a commission up front, and all I would have done was just take a 5 or 10% ownership in the deal instead of taking any commission, or maybe just a much smaller commission up front, I could have made infinitely more money in the long term. Most of the deals that we close, I like to roll some money into those deals. Even if it's only $10, $25, or $50,000 on a multi-6-figure check, whatever the percentage that you feel comfortable, the point is make sure that you're investing in deals. Roll some of your commission into the deal. You have to think long term like we've mentioned. Tip number 9, learn how to source great deals. The individual who can source the most great off-market deals is going to create massive wealth in their lifetime. The better the deal, number 1, the easier it is to sell it. But number 2, the more opportunity you have to make more money on it. If it's listed on the market and it's a bad deal, it's probably not going to sell. But when you find a really good deal, the odds of it selling are very high, and the odds of you making 5 or 6% on that deal is also very high. Those are the types of deals that we look for and focus our time and energy for. Tip number 10, learn how to underwrite properties. If you have some great investor clients, you actually get paid to learn how to underwrite deals. I mean, come on, this is the best win-win of the century here. I have individuals who are worth tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars that I work with closely to underwrite a lot of my deals. And I've been able to learn from them over the last number of years because I get to learn exactly how they underwrite deals, and using their spreadsheets, I have access to their files. I can take any deal that I get and know within a matter of moments what the opportunity level of this deal is. Point number 11, learn how to structure great creative deals. So not just finding them, but learning how to structure and negotiate great creative deals is incredibly important. Learning how to structure seller financing deals or JV deals is going to be very lucrative for your career, because not every single property that you come across is going to be really good if you just bought it straight up with, like, hypothetically with today's interest rates. If you can learn how to structure great seller financing strategies, such as how much money down can you put and how much interest that the seller's note can be held at, and you can structure the best way where even hypothetically, you can even do some type of JV deal where the owner still keeps some percentage of equity. This way that you can put down less money and the seller holds a larger note. Where you can do this in the right fashions, you can all of a sudden take a deal that wasn't a deal before and now turn it into a very good opportunity for someone to place their money. Point number 12, a great investor can change your career, but 10 great investors can change your life. Very early on in my career, there was an investor named Max. Max ended up being, not only he's like a dear friend of mine, he's like my brother, but also he was a fantastic investor early on in my career who taught me a lot of what I know today. The reason why I bring this up is because this individual helped me make tons of money in my early years. But what's fascinating here, and the reason why I mention this, is because the biggest mistake I see people making is that they don't spend enough time trying to find just one great investor, and they spend too much time on a bunch of mediocre ones. Tip number 13, get on the phones and become a masterful salesperson. There's so many people that I talk to that are like scared of making cold calls. They don't think cold calls make sense. They don't think it works. They think it's shady. They don't want to come off salesy. The thing that blows my mind is that on your license, it literally says real estate salesperson. You are a salesperson. I don't even care if you're in the real estate world or not. You're a salesperson. You need to learn how to become a masterful salesperson. The art of sales is just really the art of communication, asking fantastic questions, really being curious, and then understanding the rapport and closing processes. Those people achieve amazing results throughout their career. Tip number 14, get on social media already and go big. Now, I was someone who was always on social media a little bit, but I kind of had my foot in the water, dip my toe in the water every here and there, right? I definitely was not all in when it came to the social media world until just a few years ago. And I was pretty active again, like over time, I was like putting out videos here and there, but I mean seriously, like I'm gonna do this consistently every single day, every week for the next 10 years or 20 years of my career. I've made the commitment now where social media is just part of my average working week. I have time scheduled for it. It just gets to be done no matter what. Just like cold calling, right? I get to set aside time for it. No matter how I feel, I just get to do it. It's the same thing with content. Point number 15, join a brokerage or an office that has an aligned vision with where you want to go. It's just like about building your environment, right? If you get to create your own environment, you're going to want to make sure that environment maps to where you want to go. If your brokerage or your office, right, the team that you're a part of has a different vision, right? These people are lazy possibly, maybe they don't really care about cold calling or prospecting, and they kind of just only work by referral, and it's sort of just like if people call me, great. If they're not constantly building, constantly wanting to improve, they're constantly looking at videos and wanting to better themselves, going to self-development events and conferences and wanting coaching and mentorship, you need to be a part of an environment that spurs growth, that makes it easy for you to grow. Double check your environment, double check your brokerage, your team, your office, whatever it is, and make sure you got an aligned vision so that you can grow with ease. Point number 16, mindset is everything. Your business is only going to be able to grow to the extent that you do. The most important investment that you can make is in yourself. The most impactful part about your body is the 6 inches between your ears, right? Like if you're going to invest in any aspect of your business, it should be you first. Before you pay for Zillow leads, go to all these crazy networking events and try to figure this out, or pay for this mailer or pay for that platform or whatever it is. Before you're going to invest any substantial amount of money, it should be invested in you first, because again, the business does not grow without you growing. So it's invest in you so that you can invest in everything else later. Point number 17, the way you build a team is going to dictate your growth. Let me be very clear. You do not need to hire 4 or 5 or 6 support staff to get to $1 million a year in income. In the commercial real estate business, we're talking about doing somewhere between 6 and maybe 15 deals in order to make $1 million a year in income. I've made the mistake in the past of having 10 plus full-time employees to make $1 million a year. And think about that. When you have 10 employees, you're paying somewhere between $30,000 a year and $60,000 a year. Think about how much money, and that was just one expense. That's just salaries, okay? That doesn't include rent, software, marketing, you name it, right? If you got a one fat bill just for salaries, think about how much harder it's going to be in order to get to a net $1 million. You can get to net $1 million, one full-time employee, one VA, or maybe 2 or 3 VAs. Think about how much the difference of expenses. 10 employees like I did a few years ago to go get over $1 million in GCI, or one full-time employee and a VA, or maybe 2 or 3 VAs. And I have less employees now, full-time, than I did back then, and I have a way higher margin and profit because I don't need to have all that salary overhead. You can do that without having a massive support staff team. Number 18, if you want to become wealthy, you need to find a way to either buy or get equity in the best deals. I've been a part of hundreds of transactions on the investment sales side, and there are so many properties that I wish I just said, look, I don't need the extra 25K or 50K today, or even 10K. I can roll $5,000 of my 10K commission into this deal. I could just take that 5K, invest in that deal, and it can become 7 or 10 or 25,000 down the road, depending on which kind of deal it is. And it can pay me in the meantime, sometimes depending again on the type of deal. There's a lot of single families that I could have just rolled my $10,000 or $20,000 commission check into, where that 10K, I could have rolled that 10K into the deal and I would have made 20K back. So I would have made 100% on my money in those deals. You're not going to want to just be a part of the broker fee every single time. If you want to build wealth, you're going to have to invest money, get equity, and I promise you that the 10-year version down the road will be incredibly grateful, infinitely more grateful that you invested in those deals. Your money today can compound just by investing in the deals that you're already selling, just by being paid differently. Point number 19, leads solve all problems. Now look, my very first year in the business, I didn't spend any time except for the 10th month of my first year started prospecting. The first 9 months, right, or I even say just about 10 months, was zero prospecting. I spent zero time on prospecting. It was literally I was basically an administrative assistant for the most part. I'm gonna tell you, I made $29,000 that year, and the only reason why I started making money when I closed on a deal in the 11th and then 12th month, I made $29,000 my first year. The only reason why I did that was because I started lead generating. Leads solve all problems. So if you're feeling the financial roller coasters of the real estate market today, you gotta double check yourself and say, how much time am I spending on lead generation? Point number 20, focus on higher price point deals. My average sales price was under $300,000, and I was making like 2% or 2.5% on average, okay? So that means my average commission check was something like $6,000. And like every single year, it was the next year was like 305, the next year was like 325. Then I finally got a coach who was like, hey, you sell what you prospect for. And I was like, wait, so that means if I want a higher price point, I just have to prospect higher price point areas or higher price point properties. And he's like, yes. It's like, oh, okay. So I started prospecting higher price point neighborhoods. This was again years ago, right, when I was in the residential only space. And I started selling, all of a sudden my price point went to $600,000 in a year because I started focusing on it. So I was able to double my price point in 12 months. It is life-changing money. And it's not that different of a process. Point number 21, focus on off-market deals. If you're in the commercial world, this makes a lot of sense. And if you're in the residential world, I hope this gives you some clarity over the next few minutes while I explain. If you focus on off-market deals, you're virtually guaranteed to make both sides of the commission, right? You're gonna, if it's off-market, that means you're representing the seller and the buyer 100% of the time. If you want to double your commissions or have an average commission of double what one side is, right? If your average market right now is 2.5 or 3%, and you wanna on average double or roughly double that average percentage commission that you've been making over the last few years, I'm telling you the only way to do it is by doing off-market deals. Every time I've done an off-market deal, I've made above 5% commission. Every single time. There is a lot of opportunity when you're off market. When you're on the market, all of a sudden now you have to play by the regulations and rules of real estate. When it's off market, when you never list the property for sale, right? You have the ability now, in the commercial world here, again, I'm talking commercial, where you are able to make a 6% commission pretty consistently. It's a very simple tactic. However, most people are trained, right? And they believe, because of what they've watched in YouTube or from their mentors from 40 years ago, that you have to list every single property that you come into contact. Hey, like the name of the game is listings. The name of the game isn't listings. The name of the game is to be able to get the price that the seller wants and at a price point the buyer's happy with, right? Like you don't have to list the property for sale, especially when you have a database from watching all my videos of a couple hundred, if not a couple thousand buyers who are ready, willing, and able to buy property. Having that, when you get a deal at 123 Main Street, you kick it over to your buyers and you say, hey, this property's being marketed, or the seller is looking for around $2 million. They make a bunch of offers, they come in at 1.9 and the seller's happy and they pay you a 6% commission. It is that easy. Stick to off-market deals. You're going to make way more money and everybody's going to be happier. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, if you have not checked out any of the things in the description down below, there's so much free value in the description. Make sure you check it out. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so. And by the way, if you have any questions, we go through every single comment. We respond to all of them. So make sure if you have any questions, put them in the comment section down below. And other than that, I love you so much and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.